Laura Pierce stood on the bridge of the Horizon Reach, watching the strange signal repeat again and again on the main display. It pulsed in a slow pattern, like an old heartbeat struggling to continue after a long sleep. No one on the ship had seen anything like it before. The signal was old, older than any of the normal distress beacons used in the galaxy. It carried a strange echo, almost like it came from a forgotten era. Laura felt a small chill run through her. She had served for many years, but something about this beacon felt wrong. It felt like a call that was never meant for humans to answer. But the Earth fleet had a simple rule. If someone called for help, humans answered, whether the galaxy wanted them to or not. Daniel Brooks, the ship's navigator, checked the coordinates again. He was a calm and quiet man who rarely showed his worry, but the way he stared at the readouts showed that even he felt something strange. He said the signal came from near the Orion Rift, far beyond any major trade route and far from where normal ships traveled. It was a lonely place, a dark space with old ruins and drifting rocks. There were rumors about strange things in that region, but no one had solid proof. Megan Rivers, the xenobiologist, watched the display from behind them. She was younger than the others, full of curiosity and always ready to explore something new. But even she felt uneasy. She said the signal had a structure similar to ancient pre-contact Velari transmissions. That meant someone old or forgotten might have been calling for help. Laura ordered the Horizon Reach to change course. The engines shifted as the ship prepared to jump. She knew they might be stepping into something dangerous, but the thought of ignoring a distress call felt even worse. Humanity had been isolated for a long time. Now they were finally stepping back into the wider galaxy. Their actions mattered more than ever. The jump lasted only a moment, but when they came out of hyperspace, everyone on the bridge fell silent. The world below them was burning. Blue oceans and green continents were scarred with black smoke and glowing fire. Broken ships floated in orbit, some still burning from fresh battle. The remains of small defense stations spun slowly, torn apart by something powerful. And below all that destruction lay a Velari colony, one of the peaceful races known for art and gentle culture. They never attacked anyone, they never invaded anyone. They lived quietly on the edges of the galaxy. Now they were dying. Laura ordered Daniel to scan for survivors. Megan checked life signs on the planet's surface. The numbers were low, very low. Someone had attacked the colony hard and fast. While they analyzed the readings, a short message came through. It was weak, barely holding together. A Velari voice spoke through static, begging for help. The words were broken, repeated many times as if the message had been damaged long ago. Laura listened to the voice and felt her heart tighten. Someone was still alive down there. Someone had hoped someone else would answer the call. She told Daniel to set a landing course. The Horizon Reach descended slowly, passing through thick clouds of smoke and drifting ash. The colony below was shattered. Homes were broken. Fields burned. Small crafts were crashed into the ground. Entire areas were empty, as if the people had vanished. When the ship landed, Laura gathered a small team. She walked down the ramp in her environment suit, feeling the heat under her boots. Megan followed with a medical kit. Daniel stayed behind to coordinate scans. A group of surviving Velari approached them. Their bodies were thin, their silver-colored skin burned and scraped. They looked terrified and exhausted. One of them tried to speak, but their voice shook too much. Laura lowered her weapon and raised her hands to show she meant no harm. She spoke gently, saying that humanity came to help. The Velari stared at her with confusion. Most of them had never seen a human before. They had only heard stories. Finally, an elder stepped forward. He said their colony had been attacked by the Morvath. That name meant nothing to Laura at first, but the way the Velari trembled told her enough. The Morvath were not peaceful. They were not explorers. They were predators, a species known for crushing smaller worlds. The elder said the Morvath attacked without reason. They destroyed everything, took resources, and killed anyone who resisted. The Velari sent out an old distress beacon in desperation, hoping one of their allies would arrive. But no ally came. Instead, Earth came. Laura felt a deep responsibility settle in her chest. She told the Velari they would not be left alone anymore. The Horizon Reach sent out a message to the nearest human patrol. Soon, a support ship called Vanguard Lance arrived. Commander Eric Dalton came down with several soldiers to help secure the area. He was strong and direct, ready to fight if needed. Eric asked Laura if they expected the Morvath to return. Laura looked at the sky, at the broken ships still drifting overhead, and said she believed they might. The Morvath were not the kind of enemy to attack once and leave. They liked to finish a world completely. Daniel contacted Laura from the Horizon Reach and said something unexpected. He detected a set of incoming signals. They were faint but getting stronger. They looked like scouting ships approaching the colony. Laura knew what that meant. The Morvath were coming back. She ordered Eric to prepare the ground defenses. Humans and Velari worked together to set up barriers, shield generators, and firing positions. The colony did not have much equipment left, but humans were trained to use whatever they had. They built traps, moved broken vehicles to block choke points, and set up drones for early warning. Megan moved through the ruins collecting samples of strange biological material left behind by the Morvath. She believed understanding their biology might help them defend the colony. She was right, though she did not yet know how. As they prepared, Laura stood on a high ridge, watching the horizon. She thought about humanity's long silence in the galaxy. Many species believed humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable. Others believed humans were weak, unable to compete with the great powers. But today humanity answered a call that no one else dared to answer. Laura felt both proud and afraid. They did not plan to start a war. They only wanted to help. But sometimes helping meant stepping into battles that changed the future. The first Morvath ship broke through the clouds. It was large and dark, covered in armored plates. Red lights flashed across its underside like glowing scars. The ship hovered for a moment, scanning the colony, then dropped several heavy pods. The pods slammed into the ground and burst open. Morvath warriors climbed out. They were tall, strong, and covered in natural armor that looked like bone. Their eyes were bright with a strange hunger. Eric ordered his soldiers into position. The humans held their rifles ready. The Velari stood behind them, frightened but determined. Laura watched the Morvath advance. She felt her pulse quicken but forced herself to stay calm. She shouted the order to fire. The humans opened fire first. Their shots hit the Morvath hard, surprising them. The Morvath had expected weak resistance, not trained human soldiers. The creatures roared and charged forward. The battle began. Human tactics were quick and flexible. Eric moved his soldiers in small groups, shifting positions and avoiding direct charges. The Morvath, strong but predictable, struggled to adapt. Megan noticed that the Morvath's skin reacted strangely when exposed to certain plants in the area. She rushed to Laura and explained her discovery. Laura ordered drones to release aerosol mixtures into the air. Slowly, the Morvath began to slow down, their movements becoming clumsy. The humans took advantage and pushed forward. Daniel opened a communication channel so that the whole world could see the battle. Other species across the galaxy watched in surprise as humans stood against a feared predator species. No one had expected humans to be this strong. The Morvath retreated after losing many warriors. The first clash was over. Laura looked around the battlefield, breathing heavily. The colony still stood. The people were still alive. But she knew this was only the beginning. The Morvath did not like losing. They would return with greater force. She walked back toward the Horizon Reach, knowing that humanity had stepped out of the shadows. Their actions had been seen across the galaxy. They answered a call no one else answered. And now the galaxy would watch them closely. The Morvath attack had ended for now, but everyone on the Velari colony knew it was not over. The air still smelled like burning metal and dust. Broken buildings stood on shaky foundations. Smoke drifted over the fields. Even the birds that usually flew over the forests were gone. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for something worse. Laura Pierce walked through the colony with slow steps. She looked at every damaged wall and every broken machine. She wanted to understand what they still had and what they had lost. She knew the Morvath would return, and she believed the next attack would be much stronger. The Morvath were not the kind of enemy to stop after a small defeat. They always came back to crush anything that stood in their way. Eric Dalton and his soldiers were already working. Even after the long fight, they did not rest. They lifted wreckage, moved broken drones, repaired the last standing defense towers, and talked with the Velari survivors. The Velari were gentle people, but after what happened, they wanted to help too. Their hands shook with fear, yet they still carried supplies and helped build protective walls around their homes. They did not want to lose their world. Megan Rivers collected samples from the battlefield and the edges of the destroyed forest. She carefully picked up pieces of Morvath armor, small drops of their strange blood, and broken plant leaves affected by their weapons. She kept thinking about how the Morvath were weakened earlier by the plant toxins. She felt that there was something important hidden in that reaction. She believed the colony's nature held a key to fighting the Morvath. Inside the Horizon Reach, Daniel Brooks continued to scan the edges of the system. He was quiet, focused, and calm, even though he felt a heavy weight in his chest. The screen showed drifting debris and dead satellites at first, nothing unusual. Then he saw small signals on the outer border of the system. They flashed for a moment, disappeared, and came back again. They moved slowly like something searching. Daniel leaned forward. The signals grew clearer and he recognized the pattern. It was not natural. It was not a friendly ship. It was a Morvath scout group. He felt the cold settle in his stomach. He called Laura immediately and sent the data to her display. She listened silently. Daniel could hear the seriousness in her voice when she thanked him. She told him to continue monitoring and report every change. Laura called a team meeting inside the only main building still standing. Its walls were cracked, and its ceiling had several holes, but it could still hold people. The Velari elder also joined them. His skin was pale from exhaustion, but his eyes remained sharp. Laura explained what Daniel had found. Morvath scouts were watching the colony. They were waiting, preparing. The Velari whispered in fear. Eric tightened his jaw. Megan felt her heart sink. The elder asked how much time they had before the full attack. Laura said she did not know. Maybe hours, maybe a day. The Morvath never waited long. Eric said their defenses were not ready. The shield generator worked only at half power. The defense towers were unstable. The people were tired, and the humans alone could not hold the entire colony. Laura agreed, but she had a different idea. She told Daniel to open communication channels to nearby systems. When the connection opened, she sent a simple message into space. She said the Velari colony was under attack. She said the Morvath were coming again. She said humanity was defending the colony and asked for anyone willing to help to come. It was a small message, but it echoed into a wide galaxy that had not heard a human call for a long time. After sending it, Laura turned to the others. She told them they would not wait helplessly. They would prepare everything they could. Even if no one came to help, they would stand their ground. Eric trained the Velari in the use of simple weapons. Many of them had never held a weapon before. Their hands shook at first, but as Eric spoke, they grew steadier. They were peaceful, but they wanted to protect their homes. Megan built a small laboratory inside a broken storage building. She set up her tools carefully, even though the roof leaked and dust covered everything. She studied the samples she collected. After hours of work, she discovered that one type of plant on the colony produced a chemical that reacted strongly with Morvath skin. When this chemical mixed with human-made aerosol compounds, it created a substance that slowed the Morvath's movements. It did not kill them, but it weakened them enough to level the field. Megan felt a spark of hope. She sent her findings to Laura and Eric. Eric nodded and asked if they could make enough of the mixture. Megan said yes, but she needed drones and more plants. Laura immediately ordered collection drones to gather the plants. The Velari helped by showing the exact areas where the plants grew naturally. The colony worked all day. Even the children helped carry small tools. No one rested. No one waited. They all felt the storm coming. Daniel continued watching the Morvath signals. The scout group grew larger, first 5, then 8, then 13. He knew the Morvath were gathering information. They were studying human responses and defenses. He sent updates to Laura again and again. Near sunset, Laura walked from one work area to another. She talked with the Velari, with the soldiers, with Megan, with everyone who needed reassurance. She did not show fear, even though fear pressed hard inside her chest. She told everyone that as long as they stood together, they had strength. Later that night, When she finally stepped outside alone, she looked at the stars above. She wondered if anyone had heard her broadcast. She wondered if the galaxy cared enough to respond. In the early morning, Daniel's scanner flashed with a new alert. He looked closely and felt his breath catch. A small ship entered the system, then another, and another. They were Velari support ships. Daniel quickly reported it. Laura hurried to the landing zone. The Velari ships descended with gentle blue engines. When the doors opened, crews stepped out carrying supplies, food, and tools. They came because they heard the Elder's message. They came because the humans had protected their people. Laura felt warmth in her chest. More ships arrived through the morning. A merchant vessel came with repair materials and additional shields. The colony grew busier and louder as help reached them. People laughed quietly for the first time since the attack, but Daniel continued watching the edge of the system. The Morveth signals grew closer and clearer. They were approaching. By afternoon, Megan had enough chemicals to fill dozens of aerosol devices. Eric tested them. When activated, a soft green mist spread into the air. It looked harmless, but Megan knew it could slow down entire groups of Morveth warriors. The Velari children watched the drones carry the devices across the colony. One child asked Laura if the humans could really protect them. Laura knelt and said they would do everything they could. Humans and Velari would protect the world together. A sudden message came to the Horizon Reach. Daniel recognized the format immediately. It was a human ship. A patrol cruiser named Starline Echo. The message said they were on their way and would arrive soon. Laura felt hope rising inside her. Humanity was no longer hiding from the galaxy. They were answering calls again. But that hope had barely settled when Daniel's scanners detected something massive. He zoomed in and saw dark shapes entering the system. Many dark shapes, too many. The Morveth fleet had arrived. Their ships were huge, covered in thick armor plates glowing with red symbols that pulsed like open wounds. They moved slowly but with confidence. They came to destroy. Daniel sent the alert immediately. Everyone in the colony looked up. The sky filled with shadows. The Morveth did not attack at once. Their fleet hovered in orbit, silent and still. It felt like the calm before the storm. Laura, Eric, and Megan gathered in the command building. Laura said the Morveth were waiting for a signal or a preparation. They were not rushing. They were planning something large. Eric believed they might be preparing to break the shield from orbit. Megan thought they were trying to understand their earlier defeat. The Velari elder believed the fleet was waiting for their strongest warriors to arrive. There was no way to know for sure. They only knew one thing: the real attack was coming. Night fell again. The colony grew quiet as everyone waited. Then the ground shook. The Morvath launched their first wave. Pods rained down from the sky like falling metal stars. They hit the ground with violent impacts. Each pod opened with a loud crack and Morveth warriors climbed out. Their armor was thicker. Their weapons burned with red energy. Their bodies looked stronger and heavier. Laura gave the order. The humans opened fire. The Velari joined them with steady hands. The battle turned fierce quickly. The Morveth moved like living tanks, pushing through fire and debris. Megan triggered the aerosol devices. The green mist spread across the battlefield. Slowly, the Morveth began to weaken. Their movements lost speed. Their balance became unstable. Eric used this chance to lead a counterattack. His soldiers moved fast, striking and retreating, guiding the Morveth into traps and crossfire. Drones dropped charges from above, blasting groups of Morvath apart. The Velari supported the humans, aiming carefully from behind cover. Their fear did not stop them. The fighting continued for hours. The ground burned. The air shook with explosions. Laura's voice stayed calm as she directed the defense. Finally, the Morveth pulled back. The first major wave had failed. No one cheered. They were too tired. They were too aware that the Morveth were not finished. Laura looked up at the sky again. The fleet still hovered above, watching, waiting. The storm was not over, but humanity would not break. They had answered the call, and they would stand until the end. The night after the second Morveth attack felt long and heavy. The fires were put out, the wounded were treated, and the defenses were repaired again. But the people of the colony did not rest. The Velari moved quietly between the damaged buildings, carrying what food they had left. Human soldiers replaced broken equipment and checked their weapons again and again. Even the wind seemed tired as it passed through the ruined trees. Laura Pierce stood outside the horizon reach, looking up at the sky where the Morvath fleet still hovered. Their ships looked like dark mountains floating in the blackness. They did not fire. They did not move. They simply watched, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Laura felt tension in her chest but tried not to show it. People depended on her calm voice. Megan Rivers walked over with her tablet. She showed Laura new results from her study. The chemical mixture she developed worked better than expected. It slowed the Morvath even more when used in opened areas. But she also discovered something else. The Morvath reacted strangely to a certain kind of sound wave. Their armor vibrated under the frequency, making them lose balance. It was not a weapon on its own, but it could help in close combat. Laura listened carefully. She told Megan to prepare more devices and share the information with Eric. Any advantage mattered now. Inside the horizon reach, Daniel Brooks studied the scanners again. He drank cold water, trying to keep himself alert. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he refused to rest. He knew the Morvath fleet could strike at any moment. He watched every movement on his screen, every small signal, every change in their formation. And then suddenly he saw something new. A faint signal appeared far behind the Morvath ships, then it grew stronger, then another signal appeared, and another. Daniel's heart lifted when he recognized the pattern. Reinforcements were coming. He called Laura at once. She rushed inside the ship. The display showed a group of human ships entering the system. The Starline Echo was leading them. Behind it were two smaller escort ships and a repair cruiser carrying more supplies. For the first time since arriving, Laura let herself exhale deeply. The Starline Echo contacted them. Captain Ryan Hale appeared on the screen. He was tall, with dark hair and a calm voice. His expression softened when he saw the damage on the colony behind Laura. He said they had received the distress signal and came as fast as possible. He apologized for being late. Laura shook her head and told him they arrived at the perfect moment. When the human ships approached, the Morvath fleet shifted slightly. The enemy ships did not attack, but they repositioned themselves as if preparing for something bigger. Captain Hale asked Laura for a full report. She gave him everything: the earlier attacks, Megan's discoveries, the condition of the colony, and the size of the Morvath fleet. Hale listened without interrupting. When she finished, he nodded slowly and said they would fight together. Eric Dalton felt relief when he learned the human fleet had arrived. He gathered his soldiers and told them they were no longer alone. The Velari who stood nearby also relaxed, though fear still remained in their eyes. Being afraid was normal, but now they had hope. The colony became active again. Workers unloaded supplies from the human ships. New shield batteries were brought to reinforce the failing generator. Human engineers repaired damaged drone launchers. The Velari helped shovel debris, carry crates, and bring water to the workers. Everyone worked together. Megan used the new equipment from the repair cruiser to increase the production of her chemical mixture. She created stronger aerosol bombs and several new sonic emitters to disrupt Morvath movement. The Velari children watched with curiosity, asking harmless questions. Megan smiled softly, even though she felt nervous inside. Daniel connected all scanners in the system to the Horizon Reach's main display. With the help of the Starline Echo, they created a bigger sensor net to track every Morvath ship. Daniel felt proud of the work, even as exhaustion pulled at him. But despite the reinforcements, the threat was not over. The Morvath fleet grew restless. Their formation changed a second time. Their largest ship moved to the front. Its red markings glowed brighter, filling the sky with a faint crimson light. Laura felt cold when she saw it. That ship was the command vessel. It meant the next attack would be huge. Captain Hale sent a message to all ships and to the colony. His voice echoed through speakers across the area. He told everyone to prepare. He told them the Morvath would attack soon and that they would stand united. Eric stood with his soldiers. Their armor looked scratched and burned, but their eyes were steady. He told them they had survived 2 attacks already. They could survive one more. Megan checked her devices again and again, making sure every one of them worked. She passed the sonic emitters to Eric and explained how to use them. Eric listened carefully and thanked her. He knew her discovery could save many lives. The Velari elder walked beside Laura. He thanked her for everything the humans had done. He said his people were ready to fight beside them. Laura told him they would fight together no matter what happened next. Then it began. The sky lit up with red streaks as Morveth pods fell from their fleet, dozens of them, then hundreds. They rained down across the colony like burning stones. The ground trembled under the impacts. The sound echoed across the mountains. Laura shouted orders. Eric deployed the soldiers. The Velari took cover behind barriers. Megan activated the aerosol drones. The sky filled with the green mist. Then the Morvath came. Their warriors were larger this time, with thicker armor and stronger weapons. They roared as they charged. Their feet hit the ground like thunder. Their eyes glowed with cruel intent. The battle turned violent instantly. Human soldiers fired from behind barriers. The Velari supported them from the rear. The Morvath pushed forward, forcing the humans to fall back and then strike again from new angles. Eric used the sonic emitters. When activated, they sent sharp vibrations into the air. The Morvath staggered, confused by the sudden weakness. Megan watched from a safe building and sent instructions to the drones. She felt fear rise inside her as more and more Morvath appeared, but she kept working. She reminded herself that every second mattered. Laura ran between defensive points, helping wherever she could. She never stopped moving. She never let fear show. Her voice gave the soldiers strength. In orbit, the Starline Echo and the other human ships began firing at the Morvath fleet. Bright beams shot across the sky. The Morvath fired back. Explosions lit the darkness above. The battle in space was just as fierce as the one on the ground. Daniel monitored everything from the Horizon Reach. His fingers moved quickly over the controls. He sent targeting data to the human fleet, guided drones toward weak points, and redirected energy to the shield. Sweat rolled down his face, but he did not stop. The ground battle grew more desperate. Morvath warriors broke through the outer defenses and reached the inner circle. Eric and his soldiers fought in close combat now. The sonic emitters helped, but the Morvath were still strong. Laura joined Eric, firing her weapon with steady hands. She fought beside him, determined not to let the colony fall. The Velari elder and several young Velari helped carry ammunition and supplies to the front lines. Their bodies trembled, but they did not stop. Then something unexpected happened. A loud boom echoed from above. Everyone looked up. A massive explosion hit the side of the Morvath command ship. A bright light spread across the sky. The enemy fleet shifted in confusion. Captain Hale's ships pushed forward, firing everything they had. The Starline Echo flew dangerously close to the command vessel, targeting its engines. For the first time, the Morvath hesitated. On the ground, the Morvath warriors slowed. Some looked up in surprise. Others roared louder, trying to fight harder. Eric shouted for one last push. The humans advanced. The Velari followed. Megan set off every remaining aerosol device. The green mist thickened. The Morvath stumbled. Their movements grew sluggish. Laura saw the opening and ordered everyone to advance. She pressed forward through smoke and dust. The humans and Velari pushed the Morvath back step by step. Finally, after hours of fighting, the Morvath began to withdraw. Their pods activated and lifted them back into the sky. Their fleet pulled away from the planet, retreating for the first time. The ground grew quiet except for distant echoes. The Velari fell to their knees in relief. Humans lowered their weapons slowly, breathing hard. Laura looked at the sky. The Morvath fleet was still out there, but they were injured, weakened, and forced to retreat. Humanity had stepped out of the shadows, and the galaxy had witnessed their strength. The Morvath retreat brought silence to the Velari colony, but it was not a peaceful silence. It was the kind that trembled in the air, the kind that felt like the world was holding itself still, afraid to move too soon. Dust drifted slowly across the ground. Fires glowed weakly inside broken buildings. The smell of smoke and metal and burned earth mixed with the cool morning air. Laura Pierce walked across the battlefield with slow steps. Her armor was scratched, her arms ached, and her legs felt heavy, but she kept moving. Around her, human soldiers checked their weapons, counted their wounded, and helped the Velari stand again. The Velari touched the ground with relief, whispering thanks to the sky and to the humans who had stood beside them. Megan Rivers knelt near a wounded Morvath warrior who had been left behind. She watched its heavy breathing and slow movement. The green mist had weakened it so much that it could barely lift its head. Megan did not feel hatred toward it, she felt curiosity. She wanted to understand what drove the Morvath to destroy so many worlds, but she knew there was no time for questions now. The colony was alive, and that was what mattered. Daniel Brooks sat inside the Horizon Reach, staring at the scanner display. His fingers shook from exhaustion, but he did not rest. He watched the Morvath fleet moving far away from the planet, slowly retreating toward deeper space. They were wounded, but they were not defeated. They moved like a great shadow withdrawing to strike another day. Eric Dalton and his soldiers stood near the main road, creating a new defensive line even though the battle was over. They did not want to be caught unprepared. Eric watched the horizon and kept his rifle close. His body felt heavy, but his eyes stayed sharp. He knew something was still coming. Captain Ryan Hale from the Starline Echo contacted Laura. His voice was calm but tired. He said the Morvath losses were significant, but the command ship was still operational. It had retreated deeper into space but had not disappeared. Laura thanked him for the support and asked for a full report. Hale said they had intercepted parts of the Morvath communication signals. The Morvath were angry. Not just angry, they were humiliated. They had not expected strong resistance from a small Velari colony. They had never expected humans to fight beside the Velari with such force. They had never expected to lose. The Morvath leaders now saw humanity as a threat, a new threat, a serious threat. Laura listened without speaking. Her heart grew heavier with each word. She knew what this meant. The Morvath would return someday. Maybe not now, maybe not soon, but they would return with a larger fleet and they would not forget what happened. But she also knew something had changed in the galaxy. Humanity had stepped back into the stars with strength. Others had seen them. Others would remember. Laura left the Horizon Reach and walked back toward the colony. The Velari elder waited for her near the old meeting building. His hands shook slightly as he greeted her. He thanked her and her people for saving their world. His voice cracked as he spoke. He said the Velari believed their world was lost, but the humans had answered their call. They had stood with them when no one else came. Laura shook her head and told him that humanity did what anyone should have done. When someone asked for help, they answered. The elder smiled with tired eyes and said that this simple idea was not common in the galaxy anymore. More Velari gathered around. They bowed their heads to the humans. Some cried softly. Some touched their hearts. They wanted to show their gratitude in every way they could. Eric walked toward Laura with a report of the casualties. Some humans were injured, but none were lost. The Velari had suffered more, but they still had many survivors. The colony would live. Megan joined them and said she wanted to continue studying the Morvath biological reactions. She believed the data could help defend other worlds. The Velari elder agreed and offered her full access to their natural research archives. Megan smiled in surprise and accepted. The Starline Echo landed near the Horizon Reach, and Captain Hale stepped out with a small crew. He approached Laura and shook her hand firmly. He said he had spoken with the Earth Fleet Council during the battle. They had watched the entire fight through the Horizon Reach's live transmissions. They were shocked. They were impressed. They were aware. The galaxy had seen humans fight like a storm, without fear, without hesitation, and without selfish goals. They came to defend, not conquer. They came to protect, not destroy. Many species had forgotten this side of humanity. Some had never seen it at all. Captain Hale told Laura the Council wanted her to represent Earth in a new meeting with the Galactic Concord. Humanity had remained isolated for too long. Now the galaxy had questions, fears, and hope. They wanted to know the truth about Earth's strength. Laura felt a mixture of pride and worry. She had never sought political roles, but she understood the importance of the moment. If humanity did not speak now, others would speak for them. Eric crossed his arms and said this was the beginning of something big. He said the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Megan nodded, saying that humanity had shown something rare, courage with compassion. Daniel looked up from the scanner feed and called out loudly. He said the Morvath fleet had fully retreated beyond the system. They were gone, for now. The colony erupted in relieved cheers. Some Velari hugged their children tightly. Others fell to the ground, too tired to stand. Human soldiers smiled, allowing their shoulders to relax. Laura looked at the sky and whispered softly that they had survived. Later, when the sun began to set, the humans and Velari gathered near the old meeting hall. A soft glow from the horizon painted the sky in warm colors. The Velari elder stepped forward and placed a small crystal in Laura's hands. It was a symbol of gratitude, given only to those who had saved a Velari world. Laura accepted it with quiet respect. After the gathering ended, Laura walked alone for a moment. She looked at the broken buildings, the repaired towers, the long shadows stretching across the ground. She thought about how close the colony had come to falling. She thought about how humanity had changed the outcome. She thought about the message they had sent to the entire galaxy without meaning to. Humanity was back, not as conquerors, not as invaders, but as protectors who answered calls no one else would. As she gazed into the dark sky, she imagined the Morveth fleet regrouping somewhere far away, discussing their defeat, planning their revenge. But she did not feel fear now. She felt determination. Humanity would not hide. Humanity would not run. Humanity would stand. Eric walked over and asked what she was thinking. Laura said she was thinking about the future. Eric smiled and said the galaxy would never be the same after this. Megan joined them, carrying a small container of plant samples. She said she wanted to develop a defense system all species could use. Daniel approached, rubbing his tired eyes, and said he had already sent data packages to other human ships. Captain Hale stepped beside them and said the council wanted a full report soon. Laura nodded and said she would speak for all of them. The wind moved softly across the colony. The people, human and Velari, stood together under the glowing sky. The galaxy would remember the day they called for help, and the wrong world answered. Because the world that answered was a death world, a world of survivors, a world of fighters, a world of humans. And when humans answered a call for help, the galaxy shook.